From the Victory Studios in downtown Little Rock, this is Capitol View.
Welcome to Capitol View. I'm Roby Brock. Thank you for joining us. The big news story of the week happened in Central Arkansas on Wednesday. Brian Malinowski, the executive director of Little Rock's Bill and Hillary Clinton National Airport, died from injuries sustained during an early morning shootout with federal agents at his house earlier in the week. He was 53 years old. Alcohol, tobacco, and firearms officials said ATF agents were serving a search warrant at his West Little Rock home around 6 a.m. when the shootout happened. Federal officials said that Malinowski shot first from inside the home, at which point agents returned fire, hitting him multiple times. There are many more questions than answers at this point. Joining me to discuss is KARK reporter Neil Zarang. He's been following the story. Neil, thank you for being here.
Oh, of course, Roby. Great to be here.
So you were on the scene that day when everything first broke that morning. There were a lot of rumors floating around. There were a lot of you just didn't know really what was going on. Kind of walk me through and viewers through the process of what you were kind of coping with and dealing with to try to get the story out to the public.
Yeah, there were a lot of rumors going on, and so we went in sort of having an idea that it was the executive director, but of course we got to wait for officials, wait for the airport to confirm that. As soon as state police put out a statement, which was a little bit after noon, and we got there around 9 o'clock, our first photographer. That's whenever we called the airport. We got to confirm that this Brian Malinowski is the same as the airport director. And then once we put that information out there, people just have a ton of questions that we really didn't get answers to until Thursday.
Yeah, when the affidavit comes out, and it was a redacted affidavits, we see some things. Kind of what was the overall kind of gist of what we learned from that affidavit? That he was conducting some allegedly illegal activities.
Yes, it was from ATF agents and their investigation. It was around 40 pages or so, and they said that he was basically dealing firearms without a license, and they said that he purchased 150 firearms over 3 years, and that over that time he flipped a lot of them at gun shows, and that he sold around 6 of those firearms they discovered were later found by criminals during criminal investigations, allegedly, is what they say.
So the question I think a lot of people are asking is, why was this not done in a less violent way? Would there have been a different way? I think that the family is going to seek answers to that. The public certainly interested in why they didn't maybe arrest him at the airport and conduct a search warrant at his house simultaneously so that the shootout doesn't occur. I sense that that's where the next round of questions is going to come from. Any sense that we might hear from federal officials as to why they did things the way they did?
State police is investigating that right now. The ATF and Little Rock Police asked state police to show up as soon as it became an officer-involved type shooting. The family has already told us, they told us Wednesday, that they do plan to pursue legal action. We heard that from the brother of Brian Malinowski, and they went and doubled down on that Thursday after looking at the affidavit themselves.
What's next? What are you going to be following up on next?
I think there's a lot of questions here. We're looking into gun laws, because really, when does a private gun seller, you don't have as many laws and restrictions that the sort of businesses do, but when there are private gun sellers flipping dozens and dozens of guns, allegedly, that person may need a license, and that's what ATF's argument is. We're going to try and figure out sort of where's that line and where Malinowski may have been operating if these allegations are true.
Well, you did a great job covering this. I know it was a lot of real-time reporting. It was difficult reporting, so kudos to you for doing a great job on that.
Thanks. And, as we learn more, we want to try and get it to people as soon as we can, so we'll keep doing that.
All right. Neil Zarang, he's with KARK. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate you sharing your insights. We're back with more right after this. Republican strategist Ann Clemmer, Democratic consultant Michael Cook share their thoughts on Arkansas and the national political scene.
You're watching Capitol View, Sunday morning talk focused on the political scene in Arkansas.
Welcome back. Time now to talk politics. I bring in two of our experts here. We've got Ann Clemmer and Michael Cook. Ann Clemmer with Capital Consulting Firm, Michael Cook with Cook Consulting, Republican, Democrat, teacher, student. Got to tell that story real quickly here. You taught Michael.
She was one of my professors, yes.
But what year did we ever figure
Way
that
back in the 90s. We'll pretend like it was just somewhere in that decade.
Back when
Pre so many rings.
Back when all Ann did was give B's and C's to students, you had to earn an A. So
I gave some A's out there.
we're not going to ask anymore. All right, let's begin with the state's fiscal session is fast approaching here. You've been a former state representative. Michael, you've helped elect a few state representatives and senators. The big items are going to center around education, prisons, Medicaid. It always does. That's 90-something% of the budget. What are you going to be watching for in terms of potential controversy in the fiscal session?
Two things for me is A, whether anybody finds an issue that they can get 2/3 vote other than a fiscal issue, because there's always those rumblings out there. Right. Can we get that heard in special session? And then probably lesser, but still kind of watching signs for maybe some growing desire for independence from of the legislators from the governor.
Yeah, where they may split on her budget.
Are they going to flex on anything? Those will be the things I'm watching for.
I suspect that they will.
And the cliques within the legislature. Michael has experienced this on the other side. Most of my life was spent where the Democrats are now, where the Republicans were such a small minority that, we didn't have divisions. And so this is still a relatively new feature within the Republican Party to have these divisions, and less so, I would say, in the Arkansas legislature than as the party as a whole.
What are you going to be looking for?
I also have two things, and I would echo Representative Clemmer's second point. Does Governor Sarah Sanders get what she wants? Does she, just get run roughshod over the Republican state legislature? Is there a little fighting back a little bit, or arguing or compromising? That's the first thing. And the second thing is this fiscal session, is when Arkansas learns the voucher program is where Sarah Sanders has to reveal how much money is going to be spent in year 3 for the voucher program, and that's probably going to be a very, very large number that it's been able to keep under wraps, but now it has to be finally revealed, and Arkansas will finally see the price tag of this school voucher program.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to watch for sure. All right, the governor, speaking of, has ordered another round of National Guardsmen down to the Mexico-Texas border here. Really kind of depends on your party affiliation as to how you feel about this. But I'll just throw the open-ended question out to both of y'all, and Ann, I'll let you go first. What's your take on the need for doing that?
Well, I think she's responding to an issue that many Arkansans care about deeply, and maybe more than anything else. There are a significant number of people that are really driven by that issue, and we saw that in some of the primary elections, how much that was responded to. So I think she's reacting to
that. Immigration is an important issue, and there does need to be better border security. But at the end of the day, I think this is another example of Sarah Sanders just sort of grandstanding and trying to get her name in the national news by sending, 40 National Guardsmen, service members down there? Is that going to make a huge difference one way or the other? No, but it gets her name out on Fox News and the like.
Well, it is minimally, it's very symbolic that she wants to support this. And, we are in this age where she wants to lend her support.
Yeah.
She builds an ally with Texas governor.
Well, you mentioned this, and I want to get both of your takes on this too, that it is an important issue. Why is it as important of an issue? This is not something that affects my daily life in terms of walking down the street, in terms of, my business. I feel like some of this has been blown out of proportion. Not that it's not important, but I just think it has been utilized. It's played nonstop on Fox News. It's the conversation that comes up all the time, when I really think that a lot of Arkansans are still working more towards, I got to pay my bills. I'm interested in healthcare, my kids' education. Immigration doesn't seem to be that dominant.
There a couple things come to mind. It may not be, for some of us, may not be a big issue, but for others, for working class Americans who do have concerns, are these people going to be competing for the same jobs? This is not the kind of jobs that we're working for, so there is that concern of large number of people coming across the border. It's a valid concern. Obama, when he was president, talked about border security, and then also Republicans realize how important of an issue issue this is, which is one of the reasons why Donald Trump basically told the House Republicans to kill that bipartisan immigration bill, because they don't want to do anything to solve the problem at the border, because it might help Democrats. So that just sort of shows the salience as a political, cudgel against the Democrats.
You believe that take?
I would probably not couch it the same way, but I do think it's important. Every nation has responsibility. I mean, to be a nation, one of the things is that you have borders that you can protect and defend, and every country wants to control who comes into their borders.
Right.
So I think it's something that people do see. Aside from Fox News, I probably could do a disclaimer. I'm not a Fox News watcher. I might lose credentials.
You're a KARK
that's right,
and
that's
Fox
right.
16 News
but
watcher.
But you see mainstream media covering this just as, maybe not to the extent of Fox, but it's out there as an issue. And you're right, there are people in the building trades. I see them all the time. My neighbors are saying, look, I'm having a tough time competing against people that probably aren't legal workers here.
All right, let's shift our attention to bigger picture to Washington, D.C. We'll get one question in on this. We'll have to take a break afterwards. But we see a lot of dysfunction in Washington. This is not something new. But we've actually seen a little bipartisanship in the last couple of weeks here, too. The Speaker of the House, the Republican Speaker of the House, has had to rely on the Democrats for some votes up there. Is this a breakthrough moment, Ann?
I don't know that I'd call it a break. I don't know, maybe Michael wants to say. I think anytime you've got a razor thin majority, and it's as razor thin, when we were, my last session, we had one vote majority, and it was, is everyone here today? Is everyone out of the bathroom? Because we have an important vote coming up, and you needed every single vote. It's almost impossible to have every vote in the chair needed for it.
Yeah.
So,
I don't think Professor Clemmer would like what I'm going to say, but I think it's Republican dysfunction that is the word of the day in D.C. Don't forget they kicked out Kevin McCarthy not too long ago. The new Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, is way over his head, as he's only been there, 3 or 4 terms, and having to rely on Democrats to get certain things passed may get him kicked out by the Republican caucus over again.
All right, let's take a quick commercial break. We're going to come back to Washington, D.C. politics and talk about some more state things when we come back. Ann Clemmer and Michael Cook are my guests. We're back after the break.